There are no buffalo in North America.
Okay, we know.
What?
There are no buffalo in North America. They're all
What's the
bison.
difference between a buffalo and a bison?
They're different animals.
I mean, they're like related.
They're closely related,
but they're not the same animal.
Asia has like the big water buffaloes in Asia.
News.
Haven't I told you this?
No.
There's like yaks; those are also related, but they're not the same.
I know. Yeah, I know. Yaks were the same.
The reason that we get confused is because there are European buffalo that look very similar to American bison.
Oh, okay.
All right, AJ, 5 minutes on the clock for this opt-in. Once again, we're going to talk about SDRs individually forecasting, setting them up for success that way, similar to how the whole sales funnel might, or an account executive might be doing it. I think it's something that's important in getting you to that next step as an SDR. I think you can be a decent SDR without doing this sort of thing, but knowing where you're going, what your month looks like, being able to look ahead is a skill that not only you'll need once you become an account executive, if that's the career path you're going, but will also help you in the short term in your role as an SDR you'll have a better pipeline, et cetera, et cetera. So AJ, talk to me a little bit about why you think it's important.
Yeah, I think it's to your points that you just made, it's hugely important for an SDR to understand the status of the accounts in their name, right? If I know that I've got 10 to 15 good pipeline accounts that could theoretically flip over into a sales opportunity at some point this year, I want to know that each month going in, as the new month rolls around and as your quota resets, how many of those I can count on for that month to know, okay, and this is just a hypothetical example, this is something that I did as an SDR and I do encourage everyone to do, but if I have 10 pipeline opportunities and 5 of them are at 50% or more, and I go into a month and I'm at 0 out of 10 leagues that I've passed, I can look at my conversions and say, hey, out of these 10 leads, if they're at 50% opportunity, I can assume 5 of them are going to flip at some point this month. Great. So I'm at 5 out of 10 already. How do I then spend that extra time that I have not having to do outbound prospecting to then get those other 5 leads to come in? And that's where I think SDRs really separate themselves from the good and the great, in that they can use that extra time to be a bit more creative, try out new stuff, test new cadences. A whole bunch of different opportunities are open to you when you know that you can count on a certain amount of leagues to come in every month. And to your point, it kind of sets you up to get to that next step. It's a huge boon for you on the accountability side of things. If you can show that to your manager that you're tracking all of that stuff, that's like next level stuff for a lot of SDRs that really isn't expected of them. Yeah,
absolutely. So I'd love to get your tactical advice on what are you doing to come up with those percentages? Like, what does it look like at 50%? Obviously, it's going to be a little bit case by case, but what are some of the questions you ask yourself about these prospects in your pipeline that lead you to those percentages?
Yeah, I think for me, it was a lot of timing based stuff. And it was something that you just had to get, like you said, case by case basis out in a conversation with someone. So Alex, if I'm talking to you and you're really interested in learning more about what my company has to offer, blah, 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 and you say, listen, our budget's here. We just need to wait for our contract to expire with our current solution, and then we can start exploring in 3 months. To me, that's like bang. You're already at like 75 to 90% because I know you're interested, you have money, there's a compelling event. Great. Versus maybe we just talked and you're like, this is something we've considered, but like we're not fully invested in making this decision yet. It's more of like a nice to have type situation, but I'd love to learn more. That's obviously not going to be as high of a percentage to flip. Maybe that's closer to 25%. So I developed a little system myself to kind of go through basic, almost BANT qualification, and each one that got checked off was 25%. Other SDRs do it differently. I know BANT's not really cool anymore. Back in 2014 when I was doing this, it was the thing that people were doing. But if you have a different system in place for qualification, look at that, and however many boxes get checked off tells you basically how the likelihood that lead is going to flip over into your AE's hands. I don't know, did you do anything like this when you were an SDR, Alex, or have experience with this?
So not really. I would say that I did a good job of seeing what pipeline I had coming up in the month. And I would say, well, that might, and that might, and that might, but I don't think I went deep enough to give percentages.
Yeah.
So
you just like know, right? Like as an SDR, your intuition tells you like, I know I had a good conversation with this person. They'll probably flip, or like, that could push to next month, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Right, exactly. And I will say most of my time as an SDR was spent with a client that had a lot of specific qualifications. So a lot of it for me was, it wasn't just timing. There was no educational sell. It was really like, do you have it or do you not? And that depended so much on their internal business processes. You know, they might be like, you can check in 3 months. We might have done something about it. We might not have. And I'd be like, okay. And that kind of forecasting is much harder to do, which is, I think, how I ended up relying on like a maybe not, and just used hunches more than anything. But I think if I were to go back and kind of look at the process, there are definitely areas where I could either assign percentages or likelihoods in a way that was more trackable and led to me having a more sort of organized structure throughout my day.
Yeah. And I'll just end with this. If you're an AE, if you want to become an AE as an SDR, this is something you just have to know, because that's how you're going to track your pipeline opportunities moving forward. And those percentages are typically more dictated at a management level, and they like bleed through the entire organization. So learn what your AEs are using percentage wise and try to apply the same thing, that same process, to your own leads. And you'll just get a better handle of what your month to month looks like, and how many leads you can reliably forecast will end up flipping. It's just going to help you out, and it's going to help your team out in the long run.
All right, AJ, 15 seconds. Tell everyone about opt-in.
Opt-in, quick, 5-minute videos, no fluff, actionable tips. You can find us on our YouTube, on our LinkedIn, on our Instagram, and on the website, demanddrive.com.
Create a children's book with SDRs, just so like, you know, babies want to become SDRs. You know?
Good night.
Start them out young.
Good night, desk. Good night, chair.
Good night, prospects everywhere.
Oh,
There it is.